The wind howled through the mountains like a restless spirit, rattling the windows of Ethan's small cabin. He had chosen this remote place for its solitude, for the peace that only the farthest peaks could offer. Down in the valleys, life was noisy, crowded, and full of distractions. Up here, it was just him, the forest, and the endless sky. He liked it that way. Every morning, he would wake to the scent of pine and damp earth, and every night he would sit by the fire, listening to the stars whisper through the cold air. Life was simple, honest, and safe, or so he thought. One evening, a sudden storm rolled in. Thick clouds swallowed the sky, and the first heavy drops of rain pelted the roof. Ethan had just returned from gathering firewood, his jacket soaked, boots muddy. As he stepped inside, he noticed a faint sound, a soft, almost desperate whisper barely louder than the rain. He froze. The cabin was empty as far as he knew. "Probably just the wind," he muttered to himself, shaking his head. Yet the sound came again, more distinct this time. A low, frightened sound, like someone crying. Ethan's heart beat faster. He moved slowly toward the back of the cabin, where the small storage room was. The whisper became clearer, like someone, or something, was huddled in the corner. He gripped the wooden handle of his broom, ready for anything, though he had no real idea what he would do if it was, whatever it was. "Hello," he called gently. "I mean you no harm." Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, like liquid silver under a soft sun. Her eyes glowed with a pale, luminous blue that seemed to pierce right through him. Her hair floated slightly as if it resisted gravity, and she moved with a fluid grace that was almost otherworldly. Ethan froze in awe and fear. He had read about aliens in books and seen them in movies, but this was real. And terrified, the woman flinched, taking a step back. "No, please," she whispered, her voice musical but quivering. "I am not your enemy. I don't want to be hurt." "What's yours?" They hunt us," she shivered. "I fled. I had nowhere to go. Please don't make me go back." Then she sank to the floor, hugging her knees tightly to her chest. Ethan sat down across from her, careful not to make sudden movements. He realized that despite her appearance, she was alone, frightened, and probably exhausted. He knew enough from survival training to understand one thing: when someone or something is cornered, trust must be earned slowly. He glanced around the cabin. It was small, with one main room, a kitchen corner, and a fireplace. Outside, the storm pounded on relentlessly, turning the forest into a blur of gray and green. He thought about how alone she must feel, having come from a world far beyond this one. The knowledge that humans could be violent weighed on her mind. He could see it. But he also knew humans could be kind, inventive, and brave. It was the perfect moment to show her that. Ethan stood and quietly walked to the kitchen corner. He opened a cabinet and took out some bread and cheese. He placed them gently on the table. "Eat something," he said. "You must be hungry. I know it's a long way to trust someone, but this is a start." She hesitated, unsure if this was a trap. Slowly, almost painfully slowly, she reached forward and touched the bread. Her fingers hovered an inch above it, trembling. Ethan didn't move, just smiled gently. Finally, she picked up a piece and tasted it. Her eyes widened slightly, a faint smile breaking through her fear. Ethan let out a soft breath of relief. "See. Nothing bad happened. And even when people are cruel, there are always some who fight back, who protect others. I want to be that for you. You're safe here, I promise." She didn't speak much, but she began to relax just slightly. She even allowed Ethan to fetch her a blanket. Small steps, but important ones. Ethan realized something. Lyra wasn't just scared, she was brilliant. Her eyes had the sharpness of someone used to thinking several steps ahead, and her body moved with an elegance that spoke of strength and skill. She wasn't helpless in the way humans often were, but her intelligence had been tempered by fear and isolation. Humans thrived on connection, on creativity and unpredictability. That unpredictability, Ethan thought, might just be what saved her. "Can you tell me about your home?" Ethan asked carefully. "Only if you want to." "You would not understand. My people, we are hunted by those who want to control everything. Energy, technology, life. They do not stop. I cannot go back. And I understand hope that someone somewhere will be kind to you. Not all humans are violent. Some of us fight to protect, to care, to survive together. You'll see if you stay." But they were also bound by rules, ethics she couldn't break, even to save herself. Ethan realized that humans had something even more powerful: creativity, courage, and the ability to act unpredictably. That combination of resourcefulness and empathy, he thought, might be exactly what she needed to survive. As dawn approached, the storm began to fade. A thin light pierced through the clouds, lighting the cabin in pale gray. Lyra looked out the window, watching the forest slowly awaken. She seemed calmer now, though her eyes still held caution. Ethan handed her a cup of warm water. "We'll figure this out," he said. "I'll help you. You don't have to be alone anymore." It was a small gesture, almost imperceptible, but it spoke volumes. Trust was growing. Maybe, just maybe, humans weren't as terrifying as she thought. For Ethan, the night had changed everything. Finding Lyra wasn't just an accident. It was the beginning of something larger, a connection that transcended worlds, species, and expectations. Somewhere in the galaxy, forces were hunting her, and soon they would find her on Earth. But for now, here in the quiet mountains, she was safe. And Ethan realized that humans, with their courage and ingenuity, were not just survivors. They could be heroes in ways even aliens couldn't imagine. And so, the first chapter of their story began, not with a battle, but with trust. A fragile, delicate trust between a human and an alien who had every reason to fear him. Ethan did not know what challenges awaited them. He did not know the dangers that would follow or the enemies that would come. But he did know one thing. Human courage and ingenuity could shine brightest when others expected weakness, and he would prove that to Lyra. Outside, the wind had calmed, the rain softened to a gentle drizzle. Inside, a fire crackled, warming the cabin. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Lyra allowed herself to hope. The morning sun rose slowly over the mountains, spilling golden light across the wet forest and glinting off the cabin's roof. Ethan stood outside, stretching and breathing in the crisp, clean air. The storm had passed, leaving behind the scent of pine and damp earth. Inside, Lyra was awake as well, sitting by the fire, her glowing eyes now a soft, steady blue instead of the trembling silver from the night before. Ethan smiled to himself. She was adapting, slowly. Fear was still there, but so was curiosity. That curiosity, he realized, was the key to survival. It was what had allowed humans to endure countless challenges throughout history, to innovate and adapt when all odds were against them. Lyra, despite her advanced abilities, needed to understand that she could trust him, and he would show her. He went to the kitchen and prepared a simple breakfast, eggs, bread, and tea. The smell made its way to Lyra, and she tilted her head curiously. She had tried food the night before, but had eaten only a few bites, unsure if it was safe. Ethan set the plates on the table and sat across from her. "Eat," he said gently. "You need energy." Nothing but warmth and kindness. "You are patient," she said finally, her voice still cautious. "Most humans are not. We survive, we fight, we protect. Sometimes we do things no one expects and win anyway." He leaned back and gestured toward the mountains beyond the cabin. "That's why you're alive now, because humans can think, adapt, and act when it's necessary." She had fled across galaxies, escaping a ruthless enemy, and yet here she was, sitting with a human who could not wield energy like she could, who had no advanced weapons, and yet whose mind radiated calm and quiet confidence. She began to understand that humans were not weak, not at all. The morning passed with cautious conversation. Ethan asked about her abilities, careful not to push too hard. Lyra hesitated, but eventually revealed that she could manipulate energy fields, sense movement and danger in ways humans could not, and heal minor wounds with a touch. But she was bound by strict ethical rules she could not break, even in life-or-death situations. That made her vulnerable in ways humans were not. Humans could improvise, lie, fight in ways aliens sometimes did not expect. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "You'll see, Lyra, that humans are unpredictable. Sometimes unpredictability is the best weapon you have." She did not trust fully, but she trusted enough to follow. Ethan pointed to a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. "I want you to see something," he said. "It's not far and it's safe, mostly." And yet there was a tension beneath her calm. She had not come to Earth for friendship. She had come to hide, and for all her abilities, she could not evade the enemies pursuing her forever. They walked through the dense forest, sunlight filtering through the branches in golden streams. Birds sang cautiously, perhaps aware of the human and alien walking among them. Ethan explained simple survival techniques: how to find water, how to spot signs of danger, how to use the terrain to one's advantage. Lyra absorbed it all, not just watching, but understanding. Her alien mind was brilliant, but Ethan's human ingenuity added something she had not considered: resourcefulness born of necessity and courage. As they reached a small clearing, Ethan motioned for her to stop. "Look around," he said. "See the mountains, the trees. You can hide, escape, or fight from here if you need to. Humans think differently, yes, but we are survivors. We make plans and improvise when the plan fails. That is why you're alive now." She nodded slightly, understanding for the first time the combination of human courage and cleverness. I see, she whispered. Your world, it is not weak. You humans are strong in ways we do not measure. And maybe, just maybe, you'll learn from us too. He had sensed something unusual, shifts in the air, subtle disturbances, but now it was confirmed. Something was approaching, something dangerous, and Lyra's fears were justified. He quickly guided her back toward the cabin. We'll stay calm, he said firmly. I know these woods, I know how to survive here, you trust me, right? I trust your judgment, she admitted, but I cannot fight them alone, they are fast, relentless. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, shadows lengthening across the forest floor, Ethan and Lyra prepared for what was coming. Ethan used his knowledge of terrain to set simple traps and create decoys around the cabin. Lyra contributed what she could, manipulating small energy fields to disguise their movements and confuse sensors she imagined their pursuers might use. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the sounds of the forest and the crackling fire inside the cabin. Then came the first sign of intrusion, a low hum in the distance, unnatural, precise. Ethan felt his pulse quicken, but he did not show fear. That would have frightened Lyra. Instead, he knelt beside her, speaking in a low, calm voice. They are scouts, he said. They are looking for you, but you are not alone. We can handle this. They relied on courage, cunning, and the ability to act unpredictably. That unpredictability, so simple yet so profound, was dangerous in its own way. The scouts emerged from the trees, small alien drones, sleek and fast, scanning the forest for signs of Lyra. Ethan's traps activated first, simple pitfalls and tripwires designed to confuse and delay. The drones faltered, their sensors misreading the terrain. Lyra stepped forward cautiously, amplifying the effect with her energy manipulation. Together, they created a layered defense, one that relied on human cunning and alien skill in equal measure. Ethan whispered instructions, his voice calm but urgent. Use your energy to distract. I'll handle the traps. Move only when I say. Lyra nodded, her confidence growing. She realized that humans, though physically weaker than her species, could fight in ways she had never considered, through strategy, intuition, and improvisation. The drones hesitated, then withdrew slightly, confused by the unexpected resistance. Lyra's glowing hands dimmed as she observed Ethan, understanding at last that humans were not just prey. They were partners, capable of matching wits and ingenuity with anyone, even a hunter from across the galaxy. As night fell, the immediate threat subsided. Ethan and Lyra sat by the fire, catching their breath. Lyra's glowing eyes were steady now, reflecting the flickering flames. Your humans are clever, she said. I underestimated you. I see now you can survive in ways we do not always predict. You survived because humans can be unpredictable. And somewhere in the galaxy, far beyond the mountains, enemies were preparing. But for now, in this quiet cabin, a human and an alien woman had found trust, courage, and a fragile alliance. It was the beginning of something neither of them fully understood, but both knew was important. The night was darker than usual. A black velvet sky stretched over the mountains, broken only by the pale shimmer of distant stars. Ethan and Lyra sat near the fire in the cabin, both alert, their senses sharpened by the events of the day. Outside, the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move of the hunters pursuing Lyra across galaxies. Ethan could feel the tension in the air, subtle vibrations and shadows that told him something larger was coming. Lyra, for her part, had begun to trust him completely. She no longer flinched when he moved suddenly, and she watched him work with a quiet respect. Her abilities, powerful as they were, could not replace the human ingenuity she had come to admire. She had seen Ethan improvise, adapt, and predict in ways even her alien mind had not considered. Humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability, she realized, could be a weapon. Ethan stood and walked to the small window, peering into the darkness. He saw faint shapes moving far in the distance, shapes that did not belong to any animal on Earth. His heart beat steadily, but his mind raced. They're coming, he said softly. Not scouts this time, something bigger. You must be careful. You'll see, Lyra, that's why humans are dangerous, even to those who think they are stronger. Lyra assisted by amplifying the distortions in the surrounding air, making their energy signatures difficult to detect. Together, they formed a layered defense, combining human ingenuity with alien power. As the sky deepened into a near-complete black, a low hum sounded in the distance, growing louder. Ethan crouched beside Lyra, whispering instructions. Stay calm. Move only when I tell you. Let them come to us. We'll use the terrain, trust me. She realized now that humans, though physically weaker than her species, could match intelligence with courage and unpredictability. The first wave of the Varkans arrived, sleek black drones that hovered silently among the trees, scanning for Lyra's energy signature. Ethan watched them carefully. They are precise but not clever, he whispered. They can't think outside their programming. That's where we have the advantage. She stepped forward, extending her hands, and a ripple of energy distorted the space around them. Trees appeared to bend and shift, shadows stretching unnaturally, confusing the drones further. Ethan had never seen anyone move like her, and yet he realized that even her alien abilities were enhanced by his strategies. Together they formed a perfect combination, human cunning guiding alien power. The drones recalibrated and approached again. Ethan used the terrain to his advantage, leading them toward a narrow gorge behind the cabin. Tripwires triggered hidden pitfalls, rocks fell at just the right moments, and Lyra manipulated the air to create disorienting illusions. One by one, the drones malfunctioned, crashing into trees or veering off the path. Good, Ethan whispered, breath steady. Keep going, don't overextend. For the first time, she saw humans not as weak prey, but as formidable partners capable of survival under impossible circumstances. The first wave was defeated, but Ethan knew it was only the beginning. The main Varkan's force was approaching, a squadron of larger, more heavily armed drones. Their hum vibrated through the ground, sending tremors into the cabin. Ethan crouched beside Lyra. This is it, they're coming, you trust me, right? Lyra amplified the confusion, bending light and energy to make the forest seem alive. The drones faltered, crashing into barriers, mistaking illusions for real targets. But the Varkans adapted quickly. They were relentless, analyzing the traps and adjusting. Ethan realized that a direct confrontation would be dangerous. He needed something more, something no alien force would expect from humans. He scanned the terrain quickly, formulating a plan. Lyra, he whispered, we're going to use the forest itself. Follow my lead exactly. Then, with Lyra's energy manipulation, they created the illusion of multiple positions, several human figures appearing around the clearing. The Varkans' drones, unable to distinguish reality from illusion, hesitated. Ethan smiled faintly. This is human ingenuity. We use what we have. We make them fight ghosts. Ethan and Lyra exhaled, their hearts still racing. Lyra's glowing eyes dimmed slightly as she realized the truth. Humans were not weak. They were clever, courageous, and unpredictable. That unpredictability could turn the tables against even the most advanced alien forces. Ethan looked at her, his expression calm but proud. You see now? Humans can fight in ways others cannot imagine. We survive through ingenuity, courage, and determination. She sat beside Ethan by the fire, observing the stars through the cabin window. She realized that her journey had been long and terrifying, but she had found an ally, someone whose mind and courage were unlike anything she had encountered in her travels. Ethan spoke softly. We've only won a small battle tonight. The Varkans will return, but we have something they cannot predict, human ingenuity. And that's why we'll survive. The forest was quiet, the mist curling around the trees. For a moment, the galaxy seemed far away and the danger seemed distant, but both Ethan and Lyra knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The Varkans would return stronger and more determined, yet there was hope. They had survived the first encounter. They had discovered a new strength in one another. And they had formed a bond, one forged in trust, courage, and mutual respect. Lyra turned to Ethan, her glowing eyes steady. You are not like others, she said. You fight with mind, not just power. I can learn from you. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone. They could fight in ways no one expected, and that was a strength the Varkans could never fully anticipate. And for Lyra, that knowledge was life-changing. She had fled across galaxies expecting weakness. Instead, she found strength in trust, in courage, and in the human mind. As sunlight began to peek over the horizon, Ethan and Lyra prepared for the day ahead. The battle was not over, but they had gained something priceless: confidence. Confidence in each other, and in the unpredictable, brilliant ingenuity of humans. The forest was eerily silent as dawn broke over the mountains. Ethan and Lyra had spent the night preparing, reinforcing the cabin and the surrounding terrain with every tool and trick they could think of. The small traps and decoys from the previous night had delayed the scouts, but now the main force was approaching, larger, faster, and more relentless than anything they had faced before. Ethan could feel the tension in the air, subtle vibrations running through the ground, warning him of the hunter's arrival. Lyra stood beside him, her glowing hands flexing as she assessed the forest around them. They are stronger than before, she said. Many, they will not stop. You are ready. They may be faster and stronger, but humans can fight in ways they don't expect. The Varkans, despite their advanced technology and ruthless efficiency, had not accounted for the combination of human creativity and alien power. That oversight would cost them dearly. The first signs of the assault appeared in the form of a low, mechanical hum that grew steadily louder. The trees began to tremble under the vibrations, and shadows flickered unnaturally in the mist. Ethan crouched beside Lyra, whispering instructions. Stay calm. Let them come to us. Remember, unpredictability is our weapon. Trust me and follow exactly. Ethan moved swiftly among the trees, triggering hidden pitfalls and noise-making decoys, directing the flow of the approaching drones toward narrow passes and uneven ground where they would be vulnerable. The Varkans arrived in full force, a squadron of heavily armed drones, larger and more precise than the scouts from the previous night. They moved with terrifying coordination, scanning for Lyra's energy signature with ruthless efficiency. Ethan took a deep breath. Here we go, he whispered. He led Lyra along a narrow ridge overlooking a small gorge, positioning her so that her energy pulses could create illusions of multiple targets. The drones, seeing these false signals, hesitated, unsure which direction to attack first. Ethan smiled faintly. That's human ingenuity, he said quietly. We use what we have, we make them fight shadows. Ethan's traps activated next. A series of hidden boulders rolled down narrow paths, scattering the drones and forcing them to regroup. Lyra's energy fields distorted the remaining drones' sensors, causing further confusion. Together, they had created chaos out of order, turning the hunters into the hunted. But the Varkans were relentless. They adapted quickly, their drones recalibrating and attacking in more precise formations. Ethan realized that this was no longer a simple defense. It was a battle of wits and willpower. He needed to do more than just survive. He needed to turn the tide completely. He whispered to Lyra, "We need a bigger distraction, something they won't expect." She understood instantly. Using her energy manipulation, she created a series of flashes and pulses that mimicked a massive human presence moving through the forest. Ethan triggered the final layer of traps, setting rocks, branches, and debris to fall and roll in precise patterns that would further amplify the illusion. The Varkans were caught off guard. Their drones scattered, attacking targets that weren't real. Chaos reigned in the clearing as Ethan and Lyra moved swiftly, repositioning themselves and adjusting the illusions. The enemy drones, unable to anticipate human creativity, became disoriented, crashing into the forest, damaging themselves and retreating temporarily. Ethan crouched beside Lyra, watching the drones falter. "See," he whispered, "humans survive by thinking, adapting, and acting when it's necessary. That's why we win. Humans survive by improvising, by using what we have, by acting in ways no one expects. That's why you're alive right now." Lyra turned to Ethan, her eyes steady. "They will not give up," she said. "They will come again, stronger, smarter. We will not be weak. I will fight with you." Ethan taught Lyra simple camouflage techniques, how to use the forest to their advantage, and how to anticipate enemy movements. Lyra, in turn, shared insights into alien energy manipulation, creating new traps and illusions that Ethan would never have thought of alone. By evening, they were ready. The Varkans would return, but this time, Ethan and Lyra had prepared. They had turned the mountains into a maze of traps and illusions, a deadly combination of human ingenuity and alien power. As night fell, a low hum vibrated through the forest once more. The main force of the Varkans' drones emerged, sleek and deadly, scanning for Lyra's energy. Ethan crouched beside her, whispering instructions. "Stick to the plan. Follow my lead. Trust me." Ethan led them toward the gorge where the final traps lay. Boulders rolled down the slope, branches snapped under pressure, and debris tumbled in precise patterns. The drones, unable to adapt quickly enough, were trapped in the chaos, disoriented and damaged. Lyra stepped forward, focusing her energy to create a final illusion, a massive human presence that seemed to dominate the forest. The drones faltered, unable to distinguish reality from illusion. Ethan triggered a last diversion, sending noise and light in multiple directions. The Varkans, overwhelmed and confused, began to retreat. Ethan and Lyra watched as the drones scattered, retreating into the distance. They had won the battle, but both knew it was only temporary. The Varkans would return stronger and more determined. Ethan looked at Lyra, his expression calm but proud. See, humans survive because we think, adapt, and act when it's necessary. That's why we win. And you'll see the Varkans can't predict everything we do. They can't measure human ingenuity or the will to survive. That's why we will continue to win, because humans are unpredictable, clever, and brave. The mountains were peaceful again, the forest mist curling around the trees, but danger lingered on the horizon. Ethan and Lyra sat by the fire, exhaustion washing over them. "We've survived the first full assault," Ethan said softly. "That's important. It shows them humans are not weak. It shows them that we fight with courage and intelligence. And it shows you, humans are worth trusting. Together, we can face anything." The Varkans would return, but they had underestimated humans. They had underestimated what made humans dangerous: unpredictability, creativity, courage, and the refusal to give up. Ethan and Lyra were living proof, and for Lyra, that knowledge was life-changing. She had fled expecting weakness, only to find strength, human strength, the kind that defied expectation and turned the impossible into survival. As the morning light spread across the mountains, Ethan and Lyra prepared for the next stage of their fight. The Varkans were relentless, but humans were resourceful. Together they would face whatever came next, and they would survive. The sun had barely risen, casting a pale gold over the mountains when Ethan and Lyra began their preparations. The night had been long, filled with traps, illusions, and the chaotic retreat of the Varkans, yet both knew the battle was far from over. The main force of the hunters would return, stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. Ethan surveyed the forest, his eyes sharp. He noticed the smallest details, the bends in the trees, loose rocks along the cliffs, and narrow paths that could serve as natural choke points. He moved with confidence, checking his traps, reinforcing barriers, and improvising new defenses. Every move he made reflected the human capacity to adapt, to think ahead, and to turn the environment itself into an ally. Lyra stood beside him, energy pulsing gently along her hands. She had come to understand that humans were not only capable of surviving, they were capable of turning weaknesses into strengths. Her species had relied on raw power and precision, but Ethan relied on ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability. She realized that combination could be more formidable than the strongest weapons in the galaxy. "They will come soon," she said, her glowing eyes scanning the forest. "The Varkans, they will not give up. They will fight with everything they have. You are ready." Ethan liked the word. It carried the weight of survival, trust, and ingenuity. The human strength was not in muscle or weaponry alone. It was in the mind, in the ability to improvise, and in the unpredictable nature of their decisions. And that was exactly what the Varkans did not expect. Hours passed, the forest quiet but tense. Ethan and Lyra moved strategically, setting decoys, creating false energy signals, and reinforcing the illusions that would disorient their attackers. Each trap was carefully placed, each diversion meticulously planned. Ethan had learned from the previous skirmishes how the Varkans operated, anticipating their movements and adapting accordingly. When the first sign of the Varkans appeared, Ethan was ready. The low, mechanical hum grew louder as the drones emerged from the forest mist, sleek and deadly, scanning for Lyra's energy. They were numerous, coordinated, and relentless, but they had underestimated the ingenuity of humans. Ethan crouched beside Lyra. "Stick to the plan," he whispered. "Follow my lead. Remember, unpredictability is our weapon." Lyra amplified the effect with energy pulses, creating illusions of multiple humans moving through the forest. The drones attacked the illusions, crashing into trees and each other, their precision faltering. Ethan led them toward a narrow gorge, the perfect location for the next stage of their plan. The gorge was surrounded by steep cliffs and dense foliage, creating natural choke points. He had positioned traps along the paths, ready to funnel the drones into areas where they could be neutralized efficiently. "Now," Ethan whispered, signaling Lyra. She released a controlled pulse, bending light and air to create the illusion of a massive human force moving through the gorge. The drones faltered, unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. Ethan triggered hidden traps, rocks rolling down the slopes and branches snapping under pressure. The Varkans were caught in chaos, their formations disrupted, their coordination broken. Lyra moved with him, energy crackling along her hands. She had learned to anticipate Ethan's strategies, moving in sync with his improvisational tactics. For the first time, she felt the power of combining her alien abilities with human ingenuity. Together, they were unstoppable. The drones attempted to regroup, but Ethan had anticipated this. He guided Lyra to a secondary ridge, where another set of illusions and traps awaited. Energy pulses distorted the forest, creating phantom duplicates of humans moving through the trees. The drones, confused and disoriented, attacked the illusions, falling into traps or colliding with each other. Ethan smiled faintly. See, humans survive not by strength alone, but by thinking, adapting, and acting when necessary. That's why we win. I underestimated you. I am learning. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and courageous. That combination made them formidable, more than any technology alone could achieve. As the last wave of drones faltered, Ethan and Lyra prepared for the final confrontation. The Varkin's commander, a massive hovering machine with energy weapons far more powerful than any drone, emerged from the mist. Its hum resonated through the gorge, a deep, threatening vibration that shook the forest. Ethan's heart raced, but he did not show fear. "This is it," he whispered. "We fight smart, we fight together, trust me." Ethan guided Lyra through a series of traps and diversions, drawing the machine into a narrow passage where its size worked against it. Lyra amplified the illusions, creating multiple false targets that confused the commander's sensors. Ethan triggered the final traps, boulders, falling branches, and energy pulses timed perfectly to exploit the commander's blind spots. The Varkin's machine faltered, its targeting disrupted, and it collided with the gorge walls. Lyra focused her energy, creating a massive pulse that destabilized the machine further. Ethan directed the final strike, using rocks and debris to wedge the machine in place. With a final synchronized effort, Ethan and Lyra unleashed a coordinated attack, combining human ingenuity and alien energy in perfect harmony. The Varkin's commander fell, its systems overloaded and disabled. The remaining drones retreated, disoriented and broken. The forest fell silent, the only sound the crackling of Ethan's fire and the soft hum of Lyra's energy. They had won. Against all odds, the human and the alien had survived. They had turned the hunters into the hunted, using courage, ingenuity, and unpredictability to triumph. Lyra turned to Ethan, her glowing eyes soft and steady. "You humans are remarkable. I doubted. I underestimated. But now I see. Courage, mind, unpredictability, that is your strength." "It's not just me, Lyra, it's all humans. We survive, we fight, and we improvise. We turn the impossible into survival. And today we did it together." Lyra's glowing hands dimmed as she exhaled. I will stay here for now. Your world, it is different, yes, but humans are strong in ways we do not measure. I am grateful. That's why we're dangerous." They would improve the cabin, strengthen the forest defenses, and learn from one another. Lyra shared knowledge of energy manipulation and survival tactics, while Ethan taught her the nuances of human improvisation, resourcefulness, and strategy. They were no longer just a human and an alien hiding in the mountains. They were a team, a partnership forged in trust, courage, and mutual respect. Together, they represented the best of both worlds. Human ingenuity and alien power combined to face threats no one could predict. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Varkins would regroup. They would underestimate humans again, just as they had before. But Ethan and Lyra knew better. Humans were not just survivors. They were clever, resourceful, and courageous. And together with Lyra, they were unstoppable. Lyra turned to Ethan, her eyes glowing warmly. "Your world, humans, it has strength I did not expect. I see now. You are capable of more than you know. We'll survive anything, as long as we trust each other and think ahead." They had faced the galaxy's hunters and won, not through brute force alone, but through the human way, cleverness, courage, and unpredictability. And in that victory, Lyra finally understood the truth of humanity. Humans were not weak, fragile, or primitive. They were survivors, thinkers, and warriors in their own right, and together they could face anything. For Ethan, it was the beginning of a new chapter, not just of survival, but of partnership, trust, and hope. The mountains would shelter them, the forest would protect them, and together they would continue to defy expectations, proving that human courage and ingenuity could shine brightest in the darkest of times. And so, in the quiet light of dawn, they began their next journey, not as predator and prey, but as equals, allies, and a living testament to the unpredictable, formidable power of humans.